All right, let's Safari a thread on Quora. So this is by far the top post in the design topic on Quora. And I mentioned in my previous video that it's not a question like, how do I X? Or why should I X? Or should I not X? It doesn't seem like the type of thing that you would necessarily get Safari data out of. But I think that we can get a lot of data out of it, just perhaps not the data that you expect. I'm going to set a timer, but I'm only going to set it for 5 minutes instead of the usual 10. There's 100 plus answers on here. I'm not going to read them all. I think that we're going to get some high level, interesting insights without diving into that level of detail. So hitting start now. All right. So first I'm going to set up my little Safari file. What are some examples of bad design? And because it's a single question, I'm going to treat it like a single forum thread. Put on the URL in there. The date's the top of the file, so we're good there. And now I am going to start my timer for 5 minutes. Go. So it's interesting. The first thing I noticed is the question is, what are some examples of bad design? But it said original question was, what is the worst piece of design ever? I'll write that down. That sounds like it could be a fun blog post title. And that's the kind of Safari data I think we're going to get from threads like this. Is not, well, how do you X? Here's what people think you should do to do X. It's, people really dig that question. That's an interesting question. That could be a blog post. And this question, by the way, has 4,300 public followers and 17.2 million views, 15 merged questions. So this is a question that gets asked frequently and gets like shoved together. Now I'm going to click edit and see if that teaches us anything interesting. Question log. It looks like it shows us merging and unmerging of questions. Now that's interesting. I'm not going to super dive into it because it also shows us edits of all the answers. That's not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for like, why is it this question and not the original question? What's merged in? Cool. So the first thing about this question is it doesn't actually say what kind of design it's talking about. So at a first glance, you'll see that the answers are really different. So bat bombs, a building that melts cars. Here's the same building again. The building whose parabolic front scorches the grass. Oh, different building, same result. Umbrellas. The service menu on an Android phone. The airplane bathroom sink. Now, to me, none of these seem like they answer the question, what is the worst design ever? So the answers are mostly physical objects. Bat bombs. 2 buildings that melt cars or grass. Crazy. Umbrella. Android software menu is obviously not a physical thing. Airplane bathroom sink. So we're not going to Safari the questions and troubles people have with bathroom sinks because we're not actually going to fix bathroom sinks. This is more like a meta discussion of design. What's interesting to me is that almost all of these top answers, none of them are actually all that bad. A building that melts cars is a very bad building, but it's definitely not the worst design ever, and it affects very few people. The airplane bathroom sinks may not be great design, but they're not killing anyone. Airplane boarding procedure. What these people are actually answering is, what design seems ridiculous to you, has a ridiculous unintended side effect, or annoys you, right? These are not really terrible design. They're troublesome. Oh, look, the Pontiac Aztec. It is a very ugly car, but it didn't even win the world's ugliest car contest, and I know because I looked. All-terrain vehicles. Buildings again, boarding passes. People really hate travel stuff. That's interesting. Trump's hair at the Death Star. Oh, it's spelled with a K. Ugh. So this guy created a huge list, some of which are software. Oh, so many answers. So many answers. So what we're seeing here is that people are actually really passionate about stuff that irritates them. Maybe it irritates them professionally, like how could you design a building that lights things on fire? That would drive me crazy as a professional architect or someone who was interested in architecture or someone who lived on that block. But it's really not a very broad-ranging thing. Also, most of these objects are physical objects, which says something interesting about the design forum or like the world that most of the people answering the questions live in. Very few of the answers are to do with software. So I'm going to start taking those notes down as I've been thinking it through. Okay. 17 million views. 17.2 million views. 4,300 public followers. 15 merged questions. I'm going to put that up there. None of the answers are deadly. If someone asked me what is the worst design ever, it would have to be something that killed a lot of people or injured a lot of people or that really hampered a lot of people more than, say, the fact that airline boarding is inefficient or annoying. And it tells us something about the forum, and it gives us some interesting topics maybe to write about. So if you were in the design audience, one, I encourage you to get more specific. What kind of design? Because if I were to ask a question like this, I, as a software designer, would expect software design type answers. But if you aren't specific, you get non-specific answers. So if you were in this audience, or if you were trying to serve this audience, it seems like there's just a wealth of ideas here that you could use as metaphors, for example, or stories, case studies, if you did physical object type stuff. You could also write about why this question is so ineffective. I think that would be an interesting topic to read about. What I'm trying to get at is it's not actually the data, the words, and the text that's in the comments that is the Safari value here. The Safari value here is what you don't see, what isn't there, or the surrounding elements of what is there. I actually queued up a poem I wanted to read to you. It's from the Tao Te Ching, and this is the version that was translated by Ursula Le Guin. And it goes, 30 spokes meet in the hub. Where the wheel isn't is where it's useful. Hollowed out, clay makes a pot. Where the pot's not is where it is useful. Cut doors and windows, make a room. Where the room isn't, there's room for you. So the profit in what is in the use of what isn't. And I think the same thing applies to Safari on Quora, especially in these broad topics like design that has millions of subscribers, far, far more than the web design topic. The value is almost in seeing what isn't there, what isn't explicitly called out. And that's why this may seem like a trivial thing, a silly thing for me to Safari and say, well, you're not actually getting actionable data out of here. You are, if you sit and think about it. You are getting actionable data. It's just not directly in the content itself. You have to look at what isn't there, what's around what is there. What isn't here is a critique of products that are mass consumer goods or products that hurt people or designs that really horribly get in people's way. But nevertheless, it tells you that this is a very interesting question, that 4,300 people are following it, which means if you post on here, I believe 4,300 people would get notified if Quora works the way I think it does. 17 million views. The most recent version of this question that got merged in was asked on June 2nd, so that's recent. And there are 15 merged questions. So this is a question that gets asked a lot in its various permutations, at least according to the editors. So that's some interesting data, as well as seeing what isn't there. If you could get a slice of those 17 million views for your topic about what are the worst designs in your industry, that would be awesome. Whether you post that as an e-bomb or you answer a question here, that's the power of what isn't there.